We'll do about 20 minutes presentation, and then I'll have a Q&A session at the end. Regarding volume for the Q&A session, I'll make sure my colleagues will be coming out of this little speaker here. I'll make sure that they hear the questions that are being asked. Awesome. So my name is Joseph. Basically, I'm going to talk a little bit about Arrow, which is the organization I'm with. And then I'll introduce my two colleagues, and then we'll go right into the presentation. So Arrow is essentially the Oregon and Washington's group of regional admissions counselors. So we come from all different universities, colleges. Most of us live within the Pacific Northwest. Most of our universities are outside of the Pacific Northwest. There are a few exceptions, though. Essentially, we do live and work with all students in this area, though. So I live quite literally right down the block. I work with all students in Bellevue, King County, all of Washington. And then the next slide, I've got my colleague Joe from Lawrence University, and then my colleague Amanda from American University of Paris. I'll have Joe first just say hi, and then we'll hear from Amanda really quick.
Hey y'all, Joe Johnson, he, him. I'm our Western Regional Representative for Lawrence University in Appleton, Wisconsin. I'm based in Portland, so I'm on your time zone, and I work with all of our students from the Northwest. I spend about a month in the Seattle area every single year, so excited to work with you. And I've been working in college admissions for about 7 years.
Hi everyone, my name is Amanda, and I am an Assistant Director of Admissions with the American University of Paris, based in Boise, Idaho. I work with all of our students on the west coast of the US as well as the entirety of Canada, and I've been in admissions for just over 5 years.
Perfect. And as I said, I'm Joseph. So I work with George Washington University in the other Washington on the other side of the country, about 4 blocks from the White House. So if you've ever been to DC, definitely you've probably seen the GW campus. We'll talk a little bit about our universities in the end, though. Next slide. So kind of just an overview of what the presentation is going to encompass. First, I'll touch on the college profile. Then my two colleagues will handle some of the app review and what is considered. And then finally, we'll touch on how to stand out. So first things first, college profile. This will essentially be kind of the overview of the colleges you're applying to. So some colleges have, very athletics focused. Some are STEM schools. Some have, very good liberal arts programs, art schools. Some are just going to be, a very good general state school that have tons of great programs. Basically, you'll want to identify early on exactly, what kind of college you're looking for, and then what they're looking for in their students. Some colleges do have a specific profile regarding how many students they admit. So open enrollment is going to be more or less if you have a pulse, if you've graduated high school or gotten your your GED, then it is very likely they'll be able to admit you. You'll be able to take classes at those schools. That's going to be some state schools, community colleges, etc. Selective schools. So this is going to be myself as well as my two colleagues. Our universities will most likely fall in this category. Acceptance rates could range from 30% to 70%. Some of them do require some additional documents. Highly selective. This will be your Ivy Leagues, some of the UCs, some of UW's programs. Obviously, you'll know about these programs ahead of time, and you'll know that it is going to be a little bit of a harder chance to get into those programs. Passing it on to the next slide, application review.
Hi, everyone. So there are two main types of application review that a lot of universities take. So the first of which is holistic, which all three of us here today take the holistic approach. That's when admissions counselors look at all the application materials in your application. They're looking for the full picture, really getting a sense of who you are as a student. They're not just looking at a simple number as a GPA or a test score or something like that. They want to see maybe if your grades slipped up a year or if you have an upward progression in grades, really kind of understand the full picture of who you are as a person and as a student and what you'd bring to that campus as a result. Typically in holistic admissions, there's multiple pairs of eyes on your application. And this is more common in schools that are smaller, selective, or private schools like all of us today. The other side of the coin is there are some formulaic institutions. This is typically larger and less selective public institutions. This is when they consider only specific portions of your application. So they may not even read your essay. They may or may not read your letters of recommendation. They might just purely be looking at, GPA test scores, certain benchmarks like that, and then a calculated formula determines whether you are admitted or not, or one reviewer can make that decision as well. So big difference between holistic and formulaic. I would say the vast majority of schools are holistic unless you are looking for those larger, less selective public institutions as well. On the other side of things, there is international admissions. So kind of a brief overview of this. It really depends on what institution you're applying to, but AUP is an American University abroad. There are plenty of us abroad. We follow that US holistic admissions review process, which is entirely different than if you're looking at any of the UK, Ireland, Oceania, true European institutions as well. So our application process is very different than like St. Andrews, Trinity, any of those schools in the UK. As an American University abroad, we're looking at your suitability to our institution and shaping a class. So will you participate in class discussions? Do you have interests that align with our campus body? Are you more independent, mature, open-minded, things, personal qualities like that? Whereas international admissions, they're looking at your suitability to a program. So if you're interested in being a bio major, you're applying directly to the bio program, and you have to have certain GPAs and test scores to meet that requirement, and that's it. And they make a decision purely based off of those numbers that they see. So we can go on to the next slide. And then there's a variety of deadline types as well. So you'll hear a lot about this as you're kind of going through your college search process. Rolling admissions, so AUP is a rolling admissions school, meaning at the point of application, we release a decision within 2 to 3 weeks after you applied. Early decision and early action are also deadlines that you're frequently hear. The biggest difference is decision is a binding deadline. So if you are admitted to an institution that you apply early decision to, you are saying, this is the school I'm going to, if admitted, end of story, that's it. Early action is simply acting on your application sooner. It's raising your hand, showing that that institution is one of your top schools, but it may not be the #1, or you may not have made up your mind yet. You typically want a decision sooner, but you're not binding yourself to that school. And then there's also some institutions that have regular decision or single deadline decisions as well.
So what all is considered? When an admissions counselor reviews your application, this is a comprehensive list of all of the things that we're trying to look at and understand about you. It's a lot of stuff. Fun fact, admissions counselors review all of this. They review an application on average between 5 and 7 minutes per application. So you have a very short amount of time to make an impression on that admissions counselor, to share your story, to share your experiences, and to share why you'd be a good fit for their campus community. So let's dig into a few of these items. On the next slide, we're going to start with academic rigor and GPA. Now, you are more than your GPA. A GPA of, say, 3.6 could have 2 very different stories behind them. You could be a 3.6 GPA student who has taken lots of rigorous classes and maybe struggled in some of them throughout high school. You could also be a 3.6 student who bombed their freshman year and then has aced their classes ever since. Those are 2 very different applicants, 2 very different academic progressions. And when we are reviewing transcripts, when we're reviewing students for admission, we're going to look at those grade trends. We're going to look at the story that's behind your grades, not just your GPA. Some schools will even recalculate your GPA, meaning they will take your GPA and they'll re-weight it or put it on a weighted scale out of 4 or 5 or 7 or 100, because schools around the nation and internationally all have different kinds of GPA scales. And so we try to level the playing field. If you're curious about recalculating GPAs, ask every college you're interested in how they recalculate GPAs. They'll tell you a little bit more detail. Don't worry if you're not ranked. Class rank is becoming less and less common. But it is one way that schools will look at, well, this student has a really strong academic profile, but how do they compare to other students in the context of their school? How does this curriculum compare? We also compare curriculums across schools. Let's say one school has the opportunity for you to take up to like 30 different AP classes that are offered. There's other schools in the nation that hardly offer any APs or IBs. Maybe they offer 2 or 3. So how do we judge an applicant who took advantage of 10 APs at school A and another student who maxed out their AP curriculum but could only take 3 at school B? We try to take an equitable approach to understanding the context of the school from where students are coming from. On the next slide, we'll dig into another aspect of data points with your application, and that's test scores. Test scores are becoming less and less common. Fewer schools are requiring them. In fact, test optional can actually mean very different things. Some schools have taken a different approach to that. So I encourage you to ask a school, are you test optional? And if they say yes, ask them, are you test optional for admission? And are you test optional for scholarships? Because those may be two totally different answers. The other thing that you might be hearing more of is something called test free, or sometimes you might hear test blind. Test free basically means even if you try to submit your test scores to that institution, they won't look at them. They don't use test scores, they don't see them, they will redact them from your application entirely. So it's always important to know, hey, some schools will super score, some schools will use them in admission and for scholarships, and some won't at all. So ask the schools you're interested in so that you have a better chance of showing your best self. And then on the next slide, the last piece that I'll focus on before we turn it back to Joseph to talk about the essay is the activities list. This is an underrated part of an application. When you fill out your common application or other choice applications to institutions, you may think, oh, I don't have very many important things to share in my activities. That's not true. I know you spend your time doing things. The worst thing for an admissions counselor to see on an application is a blank activities list. We know you do something with your time, even if it's just one or two things. If it's family responsibilities, driving your younger sibling to school, whether it's clubs that you're part of, whether it's volunteering that you do, heck, even if you play a lot of esports, we want to know. We want to know how you spend your time, because that's going to tell us how you're going to spend your time in our campus community. The skills, the experiences, the perspectives that you're bringing to our campus. We want to know about you and who you are and your passions. And the activities list is an awesome opportunity for you to dive into that.
Perfect. The essay, sometimes the most contentious part. So first things first, definitely don't feel as much pressure about the essay. So this is your space to more or less tell us about who you are outside the classroom. Maybe that isn't clearly identified through your activities, through your awards. The essay portion is quite literally yours to tell us what you want to tell. Some schools do have a supplemental essay, might have a specific prompt. By all means, feel free to use that. If it's more of a general prompt, then quite literally there are no wrong answers. So you don't have to feel pressure to tell the most traumatic story or make up the the most interesting story. You can quite literally just tell us about what you want us to know. Very rarely is there an essay that's going to make or break your admissions, at least for the universities myself and my colleagues work for. Ivy League's probably a totally different story. You might want to go get some specific essay coaching for that. But yeah, basically, as long as it's a pretty average essay, some grammar issues are okay. It's not going to be the end of the world. As long as you are telling us what you want to share, then that's going to be an okay essay. On to the next slide. So the recommendation letters. This will definitely differ from school to school. You'll want to know way ahead of time exactly what is needed, so that way you can give time to your those writing your letters to write a good in-depth recommendation letter. Some schools like my GW where I work, we just require one from a teacher and a high school counselor. Some students do attend schools that have 2,000 seniors. It's going to be a lot harder to get a more personal recommendation letter from teachers and counselors. In that case, that's totally fine. Universities, we do know that you're applying from a school that has those larger populations. It's not going to hurt your essay at all if it doesn't mention every single activity you did for all 4 years. You are also welcome in most cases to submit some additional letters. So if you did a cool volunteering project, if you have a boss at a part-time job, or maybe even a teacher that you didn't take a class with, but they just know you on a really good personal level, you can always send in those letters. It's not going to make too much of a difference from the 4th rec letter to the 20th rec letter, but just know that if a school does allow you to submit more and you have more context, by all means, feel free to submit those. Demonstrated interest. So this will be pretty unique depending on the school. So I've not ever worked for a school that does require or consider demonstrated interest. You'll definitely want to reach out to those schools, go on their websites, talk to the admissions counselors, And right at the beginning of your communications, just say, hey, do you track demonstrated interest, or is that considered? Some colleges do actually look at the fact that you've emailed with them, the fact that you've met them at a college fair, maybe attended a campus tour, and that can affect sometimes the admissions chances for schools that do consider demonstrated interest. Other schools like where I work at GW, we're not going to see it. We're not going to consider it. It won't matter if you've emailed me every single day or if I've never heard of you at all. It's just not a factor at all. But for schools where it is a factor, obviously that can give you a leg up. So just definitely reach out and find out ahead of time. Perfect. And then on to, I believe, my colleague Amanda for how to stand out.
So the 3 general tips for how to stand out. The first is reach out to admissions counselors at schools you are applying to. That is ultimately what we are here for. That is why, I have the job that I have. I ultimately enjoy helping students, and I always tell students the more I know about you, the more I can help you. So by learning things you're interested in, ways in which you need more information, really kind of what's causing a hiccup and maybe making your college decision, really anything that I can help provide for you and to make it an easier decision and a more informed decision, we are happy to do so. That also plays a role in the admissions process as well. Students that I have had contact with, I generally remember them in their application. If I've grabbed coffee with them while I'm on the road, or if I had a phone call with them, maybe a few email exchanges, whatever it may be, those students tend to stand out to me just because I do have that personal connection with them. And I do kind of get a sense of who they are outside of their application. But as I said, I work for an institution where we look at those sorts of things, suitability to our campus. So that can very much vary depending on the campus and college you are looking at. But in general, that is what we are here for. And that is the beauty of regional admissions counselors existing, is it makes us more accessible for us to talk to you and answer any questions you do have. So do not feel bad about reaching out with those questions. The second part is be detailed, thoughtful, and thorough in your application. Like I said, the more we know about you, the more we can ultimately help you. Let us get to know who you are as a person and as a student and what you're hoping to accomplish in your life, what you're passionate about, really anything like that. The more information we have, the better off it is. And then the last part is always be authentic. Be true to yourself. This even plays a role in the essay. I always tell students in their application to show, not tell. Don't write what you think we want to hear. Don't list things that you think we want to see. It's really us getting to know who you are as a person authentically, what voice you have, what you would bring to our campus community, what makes you unique, those sorts of things, as opposed to the cliche things that you think we want to know. So 3 biggest tips: be authentic, be detailed, and reach out to us with any questions or concerns you may have. And then quick intros into each of our institutions. So I'll go first with the American University of Paris. Basics about us: we're based in the heart of Paris. If any of you have been to Paris before, you've likely been to the 7th arrondissement. We're located right in between Invalides in the Eiffel Tower. The bottom right-hand picture in that is actually our art building. So pretty much directly next to the Eiffel Tower, in the heart of it all. We are an urban campus, but we're also a small campus. So our average class size is about 15 students. We have an 8-to-1 faculty ratio. So small discussion-based classes, you have a community to come back to, you know your peers, you know your professors, but you're also in the middle of a huge international city, and you have the opportunities that Paris would provide for you. We have a variety of majors and minors. However, the most popular programs on our campus are international and comparative politics, international business, global communications, art, fashion, psych, anything in the social sciences, humanities realms. You do not need to know French to apply. We are an English-speaking institution, and we are on the Common Application and the FAFSA. And then the last little tidbit too, if you are interested in going abroad for college, the cool thing about it is, of course, you are studying abroad by going abroad for college, but we offer 45 study trips a year for our students, which means you might actually take a field trip to another city or country to learn what you're learning in the classroom hands-on. We have marketing classes go to Iceland. We have environmental courses going to Senegal and the Netherlands, things like that. So you're really kind of immersed in the world and learning firsthand.
Hey, y'all. When you hear Wisconsin, you might think cows, cheese, beer cheese, the Green Bay Packers, or maybe you try to not think about the Green Bay Packers. I'm from Spokane. It's a hard life being a Seahawks and Packers fan, let me tell you. Those are all true Midwestern tropes, but Appleton is actually a city of 75,000. Metro's 250,000. The farmlands, the cows are actually a half hour west and a half hour north. We're in a nice metro urban area. Our students are at an entirely undergraduate institution here at Lawrence. 1,500 students total. Average class size is less than 15, and a 9-to-1 student to faculty ratio means that you're going to have very tight-knit community and very tight-knit connections with professors who teach every single class at Lawrence. No TAs teaching anything. Lawrence is also one of the 44 colleges that change lives, colleges that are known to have a transformative education for their students. Some of the things that we're most well known for here at Lawrence, we're both a very traditional, small, liberal arts and sciences institution, but we're also one of the nation's premier conservatories of music. So about a quarter of our students are studying professional music degree programs in our conservatory. In the college, though, our most popular majors are biochemistry, psych, and business. So it's a really, really wide range, everything from STEM to arts, everything in between. I'll pass it off to Joseph to wrap things up for our college intros.
Perfect. Mine's just a map. Has anyone been to DC before? I think I probably asked this at the beginning. Okay, cool. A few people. I'm sure you all might have checked out the White House while you were there. We are about 4 blocks from the White House. So the GW campus is about 21 city blocks in that brown shaded area. This is a list of a lot of the places students like to frequent, do internships. If you're interested in political science, international affairs, psych, medicine, engineering, probably anything, we've got it, over 100 majors. We are a tier 1 research school. We're also on the Common App, about 16,000 undergrad students. Incredibly urban campus. So obviously being, right in the heart of DC, that does kind of give us an advantage in terms of other DC schools. But if you haven't been to DC, I highly suggest you check it out. If you're going to tour colleges, you can tour at least 3 or 4 of the big ones in a day. But definitely, check out the city. It's a pretty beautiful place. And if you do go to school there, I assure you do not have to be a Commanders fan. If you don't mind skipping to 2 slides, we've got our contact info. That one, yeah, thank you so much. And then I have a few business cards left here. We do have time for questions though. And then I'm not in a super rush, so I know there's a 3rd session after this, but I'm happy to stick around too if there's any other questions. So yeah, any questions, and I'll kind of repeat them for my colleagues virtual. Yeah.
So I hear there's a lot of different criteria for the admissions. What would you say the core things are? Because this sounds like so wide that I don't think any student can have every single thing or so.
Yeah. So
like, what are the core things you're looking for, and then everything else is extra?
Yeah. So if you had to kind of take home like the most important factors, yeah. I'm going to say this for every answer. It depends on the student, depends on the university you're applying to. I'd say number 1 is going to be academics for probably every school. Maybe if you're, going to an art school or athletics, that's where, might be more of a focus in those things. But yeah, academics, curriculum, and then obviously grades. So we do like to see that students are taking advantage of the courses available to them. If a student attends, a small private school where they don't offer any AP or any honors, but the school profile says, all of our curriculum is AP equivalent or, is an IB equivalent curriculum, then most universities, every school I've worked for, we do read that, we see the context, we consider that. So I wouldn't say that, you have to force yourself to go to a school that offers every AP class and just take all those. You can, be within your school environment and still have a rigorous curriculum. But yeah, if you do attend a school that has, 100 IB honors AP classes and you only take, 1 AP art class, then yeah, that curriculum isn't going to be as rigorous as some other students. Whereas on the other side, if you take, 20 AP classes and get a bunch of C's and D's, then that might not have been, the best plan there. So I'd say definitely find a balance of, taking the rigorous curriculum with what you can actually handle. And then I personally would say activities are going to be second most important for probably every school. The essay is important, the rec letter is important, all those things are going to be important, but academics and activities are going to be kind of front and center, what can win or lose you admissions per se. If during COVID, maybe you couldn't go out for 3 years, so you picked up a hobby, you started an online business, tutor a sibling, really any kind of, things that you wouldn't think are traditional, extracurriculars. It's always going to be better to share, more information than less. as well as context. Saying I'm the co-captain on my varsity football team is way different than saying I played football, for 2 years. So definitely be detailed, provide context, provide, more information rather than not. Amanda, Joe, I don't know if either of you have any additional input there. Basically, what is the most important thing to take away from this?
We think you got it. You're good. Great answer.
Awesome. Yeah, I did go on a rant there. Any other questions? Yeah.
So, the one slide said 3 tips to start up, and then one first tip was reach out to the admission counselor at the school you are applying to, but at the same time you also said your school doesn't do, right? So
yeah.
depend on the school.
Yeah, so the how to stand out slide isn't necessarily a how to get extra points on your application, more or less just how to stand out as a student. So, even when schools say, we don't technically track or consider demonstrated interest, more often than not, it is going to be, actual admissions representatives that are reading applications. So if I met you here, I might remember that. It's impossible to take all bias out of that. So, more or less technically that is, standing out. I would say, that's more or less going to be, contacting the admissions counselor so what they're looking for. So, asking what is it you consider? What should I bother submitting these? Should I bother putting time into this? That can allow you to stand out by then being able to kind of cater, exactly to what that school is looking for. I've seen plenty of students get in with no problem without ever contacting, myself or GW. It's definitely not a requirement by any means, but it doesn't hurt to just, find out what the school's looking for in students.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, too, like the worst thing that would happen is that you just get more information on the school. So just by reaching out, even if they don't track demonstrated interest, at least you're becoming more informed that way. But as a personal experience, I have only worked for small liberal arts institutions where I closely work with students. And so having those personal relationships and kind of getting to know them helps me advocate for the student more, maybe in the scholarship process or something like that. So maybe it doesn't necessarily play a role in their admissions decision, but it helps make it easier for me as an admissions counselor and as a territory manager of that student and their school to help advocate on their behalf for something that I may want them to receive or in their admissions process in general.
All right, and then I think we got a question right here.
Well, I know you said to be authentic, but I understand that a lot of people exaggerate.
Yeah.
And make stuff up. Like, how do you cross-reference that or check it?
Yeah.
It's just like you don't want that to be seen, but it just sounds like that's what people do.
There's a very interesting TED Talk. I don't know how old it is. Basically, it's about the trauma essay. So that students nowadays are feeling an increased pressure to write the next most traumatic essay, or the most inspirational essay, or have started 10 nonprofits and led their business to $1 million in revenue, things like that. I'd say, at least where I work, I can't say there is a very good, fact check, kind of calibration system in place. A student very well, can say they did all these things and there's not really much we can do. So I'd say I've heard of students, where it comes out years later and there are issues. Example, the president of Harvard potentially dealing with some plagiarism stuff. So I'd say if you're not being authentic, sooner or later in life, it's going to come out. You might get into all your dream colleges and it might never come back to bite you, or very well, it might be the issue where you end up not getting to any college. I'd say especially with essays, I've caught plenty of AI essays this year. There's not like a discipline. There's not like where we know, probable AI or anything like that. But you can kind of see the students not catering the essay. I'm not learning anything about the student. There's nothing I'm gaining from, the kind of the generic, offering up all of what I think you want to hear admissions counselors. So I'd say, it's kind of the tough thing where you do have to be ambitious, but also authentic, and there's not really much of a balance there. Joe, Amanda, I'm not sure if either of you can more delicately answer that than myself.
Yeah, I'll just add that we hope that you carry yourself into the application process with integrity. The same integrity that you would take in your classes in high school and when you join us on our campus community. And to that point, Joseph, too, it probably will come out. If you have exaggerated, if you have, made up things part of your application, you're probably going to find yourself feeling not connected.
Session C will begin at 8 o'clock. For your convenience, the session recordings and materials will be available on the college conference page of the Bellevue School District website next week.
You'll probably realize when you get to that campus that you're in over your head and that you've exaggerated, and it will probably come out. So we hope that you carry yourself with integrity.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Like I said, I'm not in a rush. I'm not sure if this room is being used or not, but I'm happy to even just sit in the hall. But yeah, I've got a few business cards left there. These are all of our email addresses. If there's any questions, feel free to reach out either about our universities or just college admissions.
Thank you.
Hey, Joseph. I'm just gonna just in the one trips.
I think my daughter's considering your BSD program,
Oh, okay, cool.
so I'll just contact you.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, ask me some questions.
Yeah,
about it.
definitely. Your daughter, junior?
She's a junior.
Okay, cool, yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds
yeah.
good. Awesome, thank you.
So Joseph, and the same thing goes with Joe and Amanda. If what stand out for you in activities? I know it's like depends on the reason, tons of things. I'm just trying to say like, hey, given two students, two different activities.
Yeah.
What jumps out to you? Because
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand like. Hey,
And some schools do actually have training and systems about this. GW, ours is more or less, it's very holistic. It's in the eyes of the admissions reader, basically. So I'd say, it's some students have 20, I'm involved in this club, or I attend this, this tutoring session, things like that. And some other students have, I'm only involved in 5 things, but I'm in a leadership position, or I've done it for all 4 years. I think it really balances out in that regard. We don't expect students to be involved in everything, to have sports and dance and theater and all those kind of things. If a student has one niche that they're interested in, if they're into theater and that is their passion, and they've gone to national competitions and things like that, that's just as great as being the captain of the volleyball team and going to state championships. So that's how I read an application. That's how I've been trained. I can't say some other schools don't have, where varsity athletics is higher than, being an Eagle Scout. That, some schools might have things like that. I think it's better just to provide, more information, more context, kind of just show that you're, well-rounded student and you have interest outside the classroom.
But if everyone is spending only 5 to 7 minutes, I mean, how much can you?
Yeah, no, it is hard.
I'm sure you you become an expert, but I'm just trying to gauge also like.
Yeah, there's things that pop out always. I'm not gonna pretend there's not. So if you mention athletics, but you just list JV for 9th and 10th grade, it's not gonna be as much as the captain of the varsity team. If you mention Boy Scouts but not Eagle Scouts, not going to be, there's going to be a difference there. So I'd say, if I don't have a child, if I had a child that was a freshman right now, I would say find something, do it, commit to it, and make that your thing. And if you can't find that, then try to get involved across the board and just show that you're pretty well rounded. I've seen students, especially with COVID, it's kind of weird because there was 2 to 3 years where they couldn't do much. So I've seen students say, started a nonprofit, and some say I have given meals to 50 families. Some say I'm still in the planning stages. And, at that point, it's just kind of reading between the lines and see, what they're.
Probably, are you?
I think we're done. Yeah. I don't know if they.